Meet PitchDB, the ultimate platform for speakers looking to make their mark on podcasts, conferences, and media outlets. PitchDB provides access to over 3 million platforms, ensuring you find the perfect avenue for your message. With AI integrations, your bios and pitches are tailored uniquely to each opportunity, giving you the edge you need. Join now at pitchdb.com.
Welcome to Your Brand Amplified, the podcast where we interview marketers, publicists, and brands to learn their stories, what makes them tick, and tips and tricks that make a difference. My next guest, David Forman, is the COO of Clarity Creative Group. And David, you started as a store manager at a Walgreens, and you left that and started this completely other career. Let's dive in. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, of course. Big difference. Went from, I would say, lifetime career. You just keep doing your thing. Very stable, great company. Only good things about them, right? Not my, it was good, but it just didn't, tickle my itch of having creativity, having ideas, being able to think outside the box. And, you hit your kind of ceiling at it. And yeah, it was just like, and for me, marketing or SEO or some of the things that I do, it was more of like a hobby. I loved it. It was kind of one of those things I did on the side. So it really became how do you take the idea or the passion and turn it into a career? And it was like, okay, it's lined up. Let's go with it.
So this is a common theme through several of my episodes, is that people worked whatever job they had in corporate, right? But they had a passion for something else, and maybe their skills really were in a different arena. And so they built that part of their life up while maintaining this full-time stability. I give kudos to anybody who does that, because I'm really good at multitasking some things, but that's one of the things I'm not great at. And I'll usually just jump in and figure it out along the way. So I appreciate the fact that you realized, yeah, this is a steady job. This is what our grandparents tell us to do. But I really love this other thing. So did you go to school for website design, for SEO, for marketing?
No, it was not necessarily part of my schooling. I did do a coding bootcamp locally here at UCF. They had one, and it was just like a 20-week intensive where you went 3 days a week, and they had homework and all these things. And I did it like in my early 30s or whatever. So it was like, going back to school after 10 years. And I was not a huge fan of the structure of school, but I absolutely loved the coding bootcamp. I looked forward to the class. I looked forward to what I was going to learn. I enjoyed the challenge of it, what homework or projects that they gave us. So when I went back and started doing that, it helped me to really solidify that, that's what I love to do. That's part of my passion. Not that I wanted to do it. I didn't want to just stare at, code all day, but how do I, for what I liked before as a hobby, how do I turn that now, lean a little bit further into yes, I do it. I'm decent at it enough that I can make a living doing it. So let's go. Let's make it a part of my life or whatever. So
what was that transition like? Did you find clients? Did you have other people you're like, hey, just start talking to people about it? What was?
Yeah. So obviously I had a little bit of, we had it on the side, my business partner and I, where it was kind of like, it all half got started when he also had a business that he was running. And he was like, hey, can you help build me a website? And it was like, okay, I can give that a try. Sure, whatever you need. Your best bud, you're in my wedding, I'm in yours, all these things. And I was like, I got you, man. So I built him the website. He's like, okay, cool. Now, can you get people to the website? I was like, I think so. And it was like, what words do we want to give them rank for? Things like that. And that was like 15 years ago. Whoa. But it was those things that we played around with it. We figured it out. We realized that I enjoy the development side of things. He enjoys the talking to people and the creative. We're very two different people, which puts us together really well, because in a meeting, you get almost like 3 or 4 perspectives from 2 people. So we had that kind of ramping up, but it was always really side things, right? It was like, we joked with it was like play money, right? It was money that helped when we needed a new computer or, a little trip with our families or something like that. Like we used it a little bit not to pay our bills or to be our everything. But so we really decided, of course, when I kind of quit the corporate job, just go all in, right? How do we kind of scale up from where we're at. And I started connecting locally more than I was before. Most of our like kind of leads a little bit came from friends and family and just like some of the relationships that we knew. So we kind of like asked, hey, do you know anybody that, could use our services, is what we did before. And it worked, right? That was a good probably way to fill, a small amount of leads into our flow, but really jumped into, we got an office, small office, literally like 350 square feet. There was like 3 rooms. One was a closet that we turned into like an office at one point. We just made it work, right? We said, okay, if we're going to do this, we want to be legit. Because that was also some of the feedback that we were getting from people, which was like how are you different than somebody else out there? We were like, okay, I used to joke, we have an office. I have a 3-year, 5-year lease. Like, well, I can't really go anywhere because so... I'll be here for another 3 more years if you want to trust that, a business is going to stay. But it was a lot local networking, right? And less on like the trying to get to know the people in the area, the people in the building, the people around us. And for originally, it was just giving a lot of stuff away, right? Just taking care of people to just kind of build the trust and to be kind of a part of the community. And I felt like that was real impactful.
Yeah. And at what point did you jump into, this is what we're going to do full time? You have an office, right? Was that still you're transitioning? Well, yeah. What point were you able to just say, quit corporate, now I'm going to go start my own thing, and like, but not just start it, but dive in, and this is what I'm going to monetize?
Yeah. As soon as I quit corporate, we got the office. So it was like right then and there. And it's funny because I got some really good feedback from a lot of my previous district managers and one of the VPs or whatever that I worked for. And one of his comments was, don't look back.
Oh.
Don't look back. Just look forward. And he's like, you're going to want to know what's going on in your old corporate world and everything that was happening here. And he's like, you could touch base with them, but keep looking forward. We're all going to be here and your connection will be there, but don't worry about us, worry about forward. And so that was a big step for me. He told me that at lunch or whatever. And I was like, wow, you know what? You're right. I would probably have tried to keep my foot in the door there a little bit longer, not even just staying, but also just like what's going on, what's happening, in terms of things that would have only like taken my gaze away from what my goals were, which was just to make it work, right? I was happy to, at the time, to take a pay cut to just be able to figure out how do I, pay, the business, how do I pay my mortgage? What's our, kind of a family personal budget that we can live on, and kind of figure that out. So I'd say like the first, kind of 6 months was a lot of the hustle of just getting like, okay, I mean, I could say that the amount that we were charging compared to now, and there was a level of figuring ourselves out too, right? It was a big difference, but it was like at some point it was like, how do we just get the experience, the business in the door to be able to learn and grow and, kind of build upon what we were doing sidewise. But now it's like, how do I do this it's not nights and weekends anymore. It's, 9 to 5. How do I focus on it in a different way?
Well, and I appreciate that you're talking about the time that it took, right? So you didn't just take the leap. You did eventually take the leap, but once you did that, you had to still give yourself. And I think that's something that we forget, is it does take time. I just transitioned in January and it's 4 months later, right? And I'm still like, yeah, it's going to take a little more time to do all the things that I thought I was going to do in the world of podcasting, but that's okay. Even though I've been podcasting for years, and same thing for you, you were already doing the work, but transitioning it to now it's going to be what we make our livings on completely. You have to test, you have to figure out like, what are the other strategies you're going to use to continue to get those people coming in the door, to get those great referrals, and then to build audience beyond the referrals.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Well, and then the other thing was that like, I had a goal, right? I'll be honest. Like It was like, oh, in 3-4 years, I want to be making similar to what I was making similar in the corporate, right? Well, 2017 was when I had jumped ship or whatever. And, 3 years later is 2020. So that's the heart of COVID. And so many things were, what does it mean? And people needed what we were doing. So it was very good, but it was a very big, like, kind of pause of like, okay, I had a goal in this moment to be here, and I'm probably not going to be able to make it because, just life, a world circumstance, but like, am I on the right path, right? Yeah. Like, am I at least going in the direction that I want to be, right? Well, I didn't get there in the 3 or 4 years that I wanted to. I did get there at some point, right? It would just happen to be, 6 or 7 years down the line. But I think also to me, it's a lot of times just about like the path that you're going on, right? Do you feel like there's momentum behind you? Because if there is, like you just, hopefully you're feeding off of that and it's just kind of pushing you forward. And then you're, again, looking at like, what does that look like? Is that going to keep being the same way in 6 months, 1 year, 2 years? Or is that where you're just going to be at? And you got to figure that too, right? Like, can I ever make the amount that I want to make? Can I do it for myself? Do I have to be somewhere else? What are my options to even get there? But for me, it was like, again, you kind of talked about you doing it. Like, hopefully you feel the momentum, right? And maybe you're not hitting your goals today or tomorrow, but it's like, again, the goals could be finite. It could be, am I seeing growth? Yep. What kind of growth is it? Any growth? Great. Let's go.
This is something that's so important for everybody who's listening to really understand. Consistency is the key. Continuing down your path, not letting the other potential job opportunities, Walgreens calling you back because you're such a great store manager, letting anything else stand in the way of being laser focused on your business and your goals. And that's what I hear you saying. And those are the moments when we see more things happen that keep us going, right? Just kick the pebble a little bit down the road, a little bit further. And then all of a sudden we're like, okay, this is where I wanted to be.
Yeah, exactly. It's very easy to be like swayed by what you hear, what you see, what you do, what others you perceive are more successful than you or going faster or further than you, or, you begin to start comparing that. And I think like that pulls you out of your own journey, right? Which is always going to be unique, right? Who you are is always going to be different from who anybody else in the market is, right? There's nobody that's going to have the skill set that's going to be, I'm the developer, my business partner is the creative. Like somebody's going to be similar that way, but not in the same way. So it's like, I'll never probably find, a one-to-one where I could be like, yes, of course, if you do it right, you're going to hit, this milestone at this point. So again, you have to kind of find, your footing and how you going to get that momentum to keep that kind of growing.
Yeah. I want to ask, because first of all, and I don't say this often, but I love your website.
Thanks.
You immediately share what problem you're solving, right? Is your online presence an asset or an obstacle with the brain? I'm like, brilliant. I immediately understand what you're going to do for me, right? And then scrolling down, I see the subway sign behind you. And then you have really large what you focus on. And it's so clean and clear. And there are so many websites, even for digital marketers, are not this clear. So I want to learn about that and how you honed in on what specific services you were going to offer.
Sure. Okay, a few things there. First, I will self-admit that we have failed in many servings that we've offered, right? There's plenty of those. So we definitely tried things that we're good at, we're not great at, right? We had offerings that, we realized that we could offer, right? It's part of that marketer toolkit that you could say there's sometimes an expectation of, but nobody's an expert in it necessarily, right? I'd say like we're experts in creating content, building great websites in WordPress, right? I'll use the example, like how many times somebody has and nothing wrong with it, right? A Wix or Squarespace website. They're good. They're a great starter, right? And I'm not denying that you can't do wonderful things on it, but my skill set is a lot of times in WordPress, or even like my business partner's knowledge of what we can do in a Squarespace site. It could be as simple as like, hey, can you add a drop down? Oh, that theme doesn't support that as an option in Squarespace. But like in our minds, we're always like, we can do anything that we want to do. So even choosing to do, web builds on platforms that we're not even comfortable with, or we end up taking 2, 3, 4 times the amount. And most of the time our projects are very clear, they're like more project-based versus hourly, but some of the ones in the past were hourly. It's like, well, do I charge them for the, 3 times the amount of time it took me to figure out how to use Webflow because I've never used it before, but they want my services, but what's the value to them, right? Now they're going to get a bill for 3 hours when they probably thought it was going to be 1. So I would say it was a lot of like failing and figuring out what services do we like to do? Were we good at doing? Were we able to feel like we were able to give, a return on the investment for the client? So that I will say is a big kind of like mistake that we made early on. But more importantly, like those are the ones that we do day in, day out, tried and true. And we know does provide results to clients, right? You know what I mean? Like sometimes too, some of the services that people are asking for, while I could say, yes, we can do it, it doesn't move needles to them, right? But maybe somebody told them they should, or maybe it felt like, they need to, but it doesn't really help. So, also trying to educate people on that. So just really being experts what we do. The other thought I was going to share is there's I guess another fellow marketer I'll give credibility to, because you mentioned like, I understood what you do. Well, one of his feedback points, a lot of times, his name's Andrew Christie, he owns a Chicago web design and marketing firm. And his thing is, if you're on a website within, 3 to 5 seconds, do we even know what they do? I was looking up like AI tools, like even a few years ago, and I signed up for like 3 to 5 of them to then realize their description of like, we make your life easy and streamline these things. Or whatever. I got into it, I was like, oh, you're just a social media posting tool. I didn't need social media. But like they use such a, you didn't even know.
Yeah.
One of his things is about like making sure that people clearly know once they land on your site, what you do, what you solve, and, what is it that you offer. So I'm not going to take full ownership in that, but I love his thought process. So we want to obviously do that for us. And I think small businesses or any, entrepreneur should be thinking about when people visit, their brand, even outside their perspective, right? Are you using jargon that's tied in with what you do that is very clear, maybe in the AI space, but is it confusing in the outside, if you're somebody just viewing the brand from there?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been there myself. When you wanted to say yes to everything because you want to solve something, you don't want your client to have to go to other places. And then you realize that, what they want is really complicated. I mean, I've had the situation where I've had to hire outside people because the way that they wanted their website designed, and then it was going to end up being so convoluted that we just couldn't finish it, but I still have to pay these outside people and not make any money myself, right?
Yeah.
And so it's really, I think, a hard thing to do is to admit, hey, you know what? These are the things we're really good at, but it's also very freeing because then you're able to say, these are the things we're really good at. If you want one of these, if you want a website on WordPress, I'm your guy. But if you want something else, I'm not the person for you. I'm not the agency that's going to be able to fulfill your needs.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. And it takes a while to get there. It's definitely a comfort issue. But then, and also too, you actually have to make mistakes. You have to fail at it, right? I had to fail at using Wix or Squarespace and struggle with it to know it. If I didn't do it, then I would never been able to say yes or no to it anymore. So, it's sometimes, again, getting out of your comfort zone, giving it a try. Yeah, you can look back. As long as maybe you don't keep making that mistake over and over and over again would be the how you're not, leaning too far into the thing you shouldn't be doing.
Yeah, absolutely. So you figured out what your niches are in terms of your service offerings. Do you have specific categories of customers that you realize are the right ones for your agency as well?
Yeah. It's funny. We have a few different like kind of verticals that we figured out, and we try to find different ones because, if I'll use like at some point we had a home services was a kind of a big deal. So our thought was that, if all of a sudden home sales go away, right, and people or the economy goes to, whatever. We don't want to be only a home services company, right? So we have like home services, a lot of like legal, law, insurance, and then we have more like medical. Like, so we have like pediatricians, we have kind of chiropractor and alternative medical care. So that's kind of been our kind of 3. And then we have I'll say we have like the 4th leg of our stool or whatever is also just kind of, some of them are just interesting, unique small businesses that just need, some sort of presence out there. We somehow have a lot of engineering companies, like ones that create or produce some unique products that it's even hard to say. Sometimes people are not even searching for them, but they need some sort of presence or a way to get there. And I think for us, we're able to have figured out how to get their voice well and put it onto a website where they can't, like I said, they're going to use such industry jargon. It's just going to go over everybody's head. But so that's been our thing. And some of it's trying to be a little bit more like recession proof or future proof, or, I don't know, decide that they're going to, stop allowing lawyers to sue people, like, I don't want to just be a, serving lawyers or something.
And I know the world of digital, so much has changed. First party versus third party data, accessibility, cookies, validating email lists, all these different things that most people don't think about. I mean, even myself as a marketer going, ooh, do we have the right DNS stuff for our email list? No. Okay, let's get that solved now because I can't send any more emails out until that's solved. All these things come up and they're constantly changing. And one thing I have heard is that eventually we're going to be all using apps versus websites. So why are websites still relevant? I think I know, but I would love to hear from you as a professional in the space, what you see as the core value and driving factor of websites versus other, just having social media or having other platforms that you're promoting on.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, even in the difference between an app and a website at this point now, to me, websites are the thing that you own, right? It's different from social media because to me, social media or even like your Google business profile, you don't own that, right? Google, we have a client that a name in his business, I won't say what the business is. There's a word in his business that Google keeps removing. So his business name keeps changing, but we can't control it, right? It's one of Google's words that they don't love and it's in his business name. So it gets removed from time to time and then we have to put it back and it works for a little bit. But those are areas that you don't own, right? You don't own social media, right? Unfortunately, they get, hacked or Facebook, 10 years ago was, everybody was on Facebook, you're posting and hundreds of people. Now, if you're doing the same thing you were doing 10 years ago, you might get maybe 6 people and there's probably, a direct relation to you is the only reason why they're seeing it. And that's why I lean in a lot of times on websites or even like apps. There's so much that changes, right? There's the platforms and the things like that. And while there might be a possibility that we're going to have to lean in on it or that the providers are going to really want those or serve them up, to me, the website is kind of still part of the free internet or the has a little bit more abilities. Yes. To show up in Google search, you have to appease Google or make Bing happy or DuckDuckGo or whatever it is. But no matter what, you can get your website out there. Maybe you don't show up on search, but it's still something you own. It's still something you control, right? And so it's something that's been around for, 30 plus years and it's not going away. So I also feel like, again, if you put all your eggs into MySpace, you're probably not feeling great about, how things are going. Yeah. Later, but that's where, websites are still a thing. While a lot of it has changed, even though like there are still websites that I think I've been to that feel like they existed 20 years ago and haven't changed much. It's funny. What our first client is a website we built 15 years ago. It still exists. It's still up. He hasn't needed to update him up until recently, but it's funny. Like it's existed and it's done him well, right? He stayed in business 15 years with it. So I feel like the tried and trueness that our websites are the value on why, people should at least lean in just a little bit on what is a website, how it benefits them. And again, what are, a client's goals? It's also for a lot of times a starting point for where people are doing research, especially in like, if you're going to have like a government contract or doing anything with any large corporation, it's part of their MO to go through and view your website and check for updates and make sure your services are listed with what you're, quoting on and things like that, that even if you just don't have things like that, even if you're the greatest and the best at what you do, if they don't use social media at this point, they're using that as a reference point. So like you kind of need it. So yeah, like I said, you don't need like the fanciest, but you need at least something to, show people who you are.
Yeah. And one of the things that you do focus on is SEO. So there are a lot of discussions. Of course, stuff is going on with TikTok and the government, but we know that younger generations use TikTok for search even more than Google or YouTube at this point. I know we've heard a lot from people of saying video SEO is really important. So I'd love for you to talk about SEO, what's important today in SEO, what you think is going to be tried and true and people still need to remember about SEO, and anything else that you see coming up.
Yeah. So I'd say a tried and true kind of thing to think about SEO. And I think this even leads into even like how TikTok and all these other places, right? A lot of things that they're still promoting are still on the web. So they're still talking about articles. They're still talking about things that they found. They're still mentioning about interesting things that are going on. So the way I see it, if you can be a reference point to them, if you can be the expert that you are and share that information on your website, I still think that Google needs a little bit of that, right? One of the core things that Google's really leaned in on is the EEAT. I don't know if you've heard of that. It's expertise, experience, authoritative, and trust. So are you somebody that somebody should trust, right? And Google kind of figured it out based on your bio, based on the articles that you write, how you write it. Do you actually talk about things that are unique from what your other perspectives are out there? Again, I think it's why AI is very exciting, right? That's the other like kind of buzz. And I love it. I do love aspects of it. But like if you're using it to just write blog posts or be a representation of you, you're just regurgitating stuff that other people are doing that already probably exists on the internet. So you don't have a chance for Google to understand who you are, build trust, and everything like that. I still think people could still write things, do things that are still reference points. So that way others can link to you, know who you are, and see you in the space. So I still think that that's still tried and true. I think it's something we talked about 12 years ago, which is like blogging, answering client questions, showing your expertise. I still think that that's important. It still is still a factor in how people still reach out to you and decide who you are. I definitely know that video is at some point a way to reach a different kind of audience. So definitely if your audience sways younger, you definitely want to do it. I would say my only at this point, like the algorithm and TikTok understands like based on some of the text that you put in and some of the, like subtitles or the transcript of it. But like there's no right now way for your video to be crawled and fully to pull all the text out of it. So there is definitely value in having video out there. There's so many platforms that you can put it on. You could still put something to represent you. But again, I think that goes back to the building trust of who you are, right? People want to do business with people they trust, right? Same as Google wants to show websites that it trusts. But you build trust by putting your face, by putting your name, by putting who you are out there. I think the reason why people say, TikTok's working for business, it's because they're doing things that show who they are, what they're doing, and why they're unique or adding value tips or whatever. I saw Toyota dealership service guy was talking about how on TikTok, why you should never overfill your tank because when it clicks off, you could do it one more time, but actually there's like a charcoal filter or something. I was like, oh, wow, I never knew this, right? Never would know. But he's sharing his expertise from his way. And the way there's value in that is that, he's being true. He's being helpful. He's sharing. I've done it wrong many, many times, right? Just keep on. I have to keep going to the gas pump and I'm already there. So I might as well, press it in a few more times. But what people think social media is or what they think TikTok is, it's not, you just saying, hi, how are you guys doing today? All right. Just wanted to, just mention that we have a special today. That's not exciting. You know what I mean? Not giving anything of value. So, as long as you're giving, I still think that's the currency of the past. I think it'll be the currency of the future, maybe a little bit more video form, but you got to send them somewhere. You got to get them to interact somewhere as well. So I think you got to kind of put a little bit of time into different places to figure out who you're going after and where those will be.
Nice. It's funny because I feel like in the world of marketing, it's like the strategies are the same, how you reach out to people, how you share problem that you're solving for them, right? And make sure that they trust you as the authority, but just the tactics change. The why, the what, the how, that stays the same. And I think people forget about that when we get caught up in all these new technologies. And I know AI's been around for quite a while. We've been using it without realizing it. Till really last year, I think that's when everybody kind of said, oh yeah, okay, what's AI? And then we're like, well, but actually it's machine learning and it's been behind this and this and this and helped to do this. So what are you seeing for AI? How are you using it? What are some best use cases? Because I completely agree. You can test, right? Asking AI to write a blog and ask it for the references and the links. I've done that to test it out so that I can go to the links and go, wait, there's no link here. This is an empty page, or this is a totally different article. So it's really fascinating to do these experiments to figure out what are the right use cases. And I also teach grad school, and I sometimes have students who I think write with AI, but don't tell me, even though I ask them to attribute things to AI. I'm like, yeah, that section of your paper had the double stars that ChatGPT likes to use. I know that you did not create that and you didn't even change it. And you also didn't attribute it to ChatGPT. So that's a whole other thing. But I can go on all these tangents. So I just really want to understand from your perspective how you're using AI, what you see as the most useful tools for people when they're, just starting their marketing journey or looking at how do we integrate this into our journey.
Yeah. So again, the way I see AI right now, I think no matter what, in any future form, right? AI is not a mind reader, right? AI doesn't know you, who you are, what you do, why you do it, right? You can give it a lot of information and that can be helpful, but no matter what, it's going to just do its own thing. I do, like you said, it is fantastic, right? It is fantastic in certain use cases. It's not necessarily, though, a perfect tool for writing things, but it's a good starter, right? What I think they literally call it's a good assistant, right? It's a good thing to be able to bounce ideas off of, to get what do I need to know? We might use it even in terms of like asking it to share with us 5, frequently asked questions that you would ask a marketing company, right? Or from the perspective of like, I have my questions that I hear, but what perspective does, the AI have? And to just get that information. Now it's going to give me the question and then it's going to give me an answer. The mistake that a lot of people make is they just copy and paste all of that and drop it in somewhere. But the answer is your answer. So you could use the question, just don't use the answer, but use that as like your starting point. Use it as a reference point. Writing is not my specialty, right? That was my business partner's. I now can bother him significantly less when now I need to like change headlines somewhere or do things. I could say, hey, is this grammatically correct? Does this make sense? Hey, I put 2 sentences, but I know there should be one. I can't figure out how to combine the 2 of them and make it sound eloquent. Can you just help me out with that? Those are the moments that it's not coming up with things. It's not generating things because it's going to just provide you things. But the more and more you work with it, I think it's good. I think you could ask it questions to kind of get you, in some direction. Hey, change my voice to be more passive, change my voice to be more positive, change my voice to be more stern. I mean, that's tough to ask anybody to do, even a creative writer, right? That would be a skill for them. That would take a lot of mental equity, but ChatGPT can do that real quick. So that's helpful. I see value on it. We tried it with code. It's hit or miss. It'll just kind of make things up. And then I see it. It doesn't a lot of times hold on to the things that you're looking for. Like I was going through a series of prompts to get it to write me. It literally was just like 2 lines of code, but it kept like reverting parts of it back to where it was. I was like, no, I know that's not right because you're not, using what I told you to fix in there. Oh, it goes, oh yeah, you're right, or whatever. So that's where it's definitely not copy and paste ready. And I think again, it's the same thing, right? I'll put it in this way, right? I'm not a handy person at all, right? But if I had a hammer and a drill and all these things, you can give it to me, you can give it to a carpenter. They're going to do great. They're going to build a house. It's going to look fantastic. I'm doing it probably, I wouldn't even put my dog in it, right? It's not going to be a place to go, but there's 2 tools, right? It's the same thing, right? ChatGPT is a tool, right? AI is a tool, but what how to do with it, what you can do with it, what you've learned to do with it is, how you're going to benefit. But it's the same as a hammer, same as a drill, right? You can get great out of it, or you could build, a pretty terrible house.
Yeah, absolutely. And what is one thing that you see people do wrong on their websites that you wish everybody just knew? Don't do this.
See people do on a website that I wish they wouldn't do. Oh, so many things. I think that people actually don't look at the mobile website enough.
Oh, yeah.
I believe that it's so easy. We all build on desktop, but I know that a lot of times Fortune 500 companies, right? Maybe they even have a policy. You're not allowed to use your phone or something. And that, so people check it, right? But check it specifically even on your phone, on your devices. I think that's usually a big miss because sometimes like the text will match the background color so somebody can't read it. The nice, pretty image that you were so happy to upload gets scaled down to really small and somebody can't see it. So I think a lot of people just, it's because a lot of the platforms are very, build it on desktop and then it works for mobile. We never we just trust that the mobile's going to look good, but we don't ever kind of go a little bit further into it. And then more specifically, they're actually checking it on their device.
Yeah, that's a good one. Wow. David, we've covered a lot, and I just really appreciate you bringing your knowledge and your passion for digital. Digital's not going away anytime soon. It's something everybody needs to be doing and getting better at, or going to an expert for. Do you have a favorite quote, mantra, some words of wisdom that you'd like to share with us?
Yeah. So this is one that I'm going to read it because it's not memorized, but I saw it a few weeks ago, and it's something that I kind of keep moving around and having, because it's from E.E. Cummings, and it's to be nobody but yourself in a world which is doing its best night and day. To make you everybody else means to fight the hardest battle which any human being can fight and never stop fighting. Yeah. So I love that, because I do believe that we lose ourselves of who we are, in whether it's that we compare ourselves to others, or we try to squeeze into this mold, right? We crush our brilliance and the things that we are where we're at, because we try to be like everybody else. And I believe that we should be unique. We should be proud of who we are. We should embrace what we're good at, and, don't lose ourselves in the price of what we see out there and what we think is what people want instead of what you offer. So.
Yeah. Oh, that's brilliant. What a great reminder, and a perfect way to end this episode. You truly did that. You realized that you didn't want to be a store manager your whole life and your whole career, and that you had a passion for something else, and you decided to pursue it and not look back. So kudos. And again, love your website. Of course, we'll link it in the show notes, that everybody can go to iwantclarity.com to learn more about what you all do. So David, thanks so much for being on the show today.
Thanks for having me. This is great.
And thank you to everybody who's watching or listening. Don't forget to leave us a rating and review on your favorite platform. And I'll be back again with another amazing guest to share their story, their insights with you. Want more? Check out amplifywithannika.com or follow me on socials at amplifywithannika.